It's November in New York City. The echoes of the Dodgers winning the World Series have now faded. And what grew louder was the talk of the most important free agent decision in history.
This is the one.
This is the free agent we as Met fans have waited for.
It's Juan Soto because he's this generational hitter.
Feels like the Mets have had their eyes on Soto for a long time as well.
It has brought baseball's offseason to the forefront.
A couple of weeks after the season, I was fortunate to be able to have a conversation with David. He just wanted to go over how, felt the year went and what I felt like we needed or wanted going into next year. I remember telling him, I was like, hey, me, just like the rest of the world, I'd love to have Juan Soto on our team.
I first met with Scott on this topic at the general managers meetings, which was shortly after the World Series. And we touched on a wide variety of topics. Juan was certainly one of them. Other players were discussed. And at that point, Scott laid out a little bit of a timeline of events, how they wanted things to go. We set up the first meeting at Steve's house during that initial conversation.
Soto and his representatives have already met with the Boston Red Sox and Toronto Blue Jays. Both meetings were reported as impressive. Now, it was the Mets' turn. And just like that, the pursuit was on.
Scott Boras set up a meeting at my house in LA.
We met at Steve's house and, with David and Scott and the whole group there. I was part of that meeting, about 2.5 hour lunch, if you want to call it.
He had his people there, Juan was there, and then I brought Alex, Josh, my father-in-law, Alex's father, and myself.
When you're pursuing free agents, often these meetings take place, and when they're very high-level free agents, they can take place in person, and there's ownership involvement. I think from Steve and Alex's perspective, they felt like it was very important to make a personal touch. They recognized that not only was this person going to be committing to us as a baseball player, they're going to be committing to us as a human being.
Alex Cohen interview, take one.
Well, it's not uncommon that Steve always has me around if he wants me to meet somebody he's hiring. But when he asked me to bring Josh, our son, and my dad, AKA Grandpa, with us, I was like, this is serious. This is not just a normal meet and greet. So it was definitely important to him.
We had lunch at my house in Beverly Hills and got to know each other.
I sat next to him and Steve to his other side, and then my dad next to me. I spoke to him in Spanish. We served Spanish food, and he appreciated that. And he was pleasantly surprised that my dad was there. And I think he saw how well my son and I took care of him.
Bringing my father-in-law is really about, this is a family operation. He's going to be 94 years old, goes to every game.
Please welcome lifelong Mets fan and official Mets grandpa, Ralph Garcia.
My dad is the OG Mets fan, so he is Met fan number one. We are all Met fans because of him, and we're a Met family. And I think Juan appreciated that we weren't just saying we were a Mets family, but he could see that we actually were a Mets family.
And so we wanted to show that, we are very family-like and that the Mets is embedded in the family way of thinking.
Well, taking care of families is not new to me. I've been doing it for many years when Steve started his first company. But when we bought the Mets, I didn't know what to expect.
Cohens have been nothing but family to us right from the top. To be honest, I think that's something harder to find throughout the league with ownership. We have cared for each other like family, and so that is a huge decision and something that Chelsea and I talked about when we were making our decision, especially with how we were treated in this organization.
When you get traded, how welcoming everybody was to me, but also, my family and my daughter. It's just first class. It's just incredible.
Well, I think it's her personal interaction, the way she actually cares about the players' wives and the parents and making sure that they're comfortable there and getting their needs served. You know, if their wives and kids are happy, it's just one less thing they have to worry about.
When Steve and Alex are meeting players, talking about the organization, they're not often talking about player production. They're really not often talking about what we're doing on the field. They're talking about the organization as a community, how we care about families and how we care about the person. And I think coming from owners, that's very genuine and somewhat unique in professional sports. And so when we hear that feedback from players or from agents, that they appreciate the humanity that we bring to the process, I think a lot of that starts with how our ownership views these processes and how they want to be involved.
Well, the first thing is I speak Spanish, and you know that most of our players are Spanish. So by just speaking their language, it's important. We share the same culture. We share the same love of the same foods. So I think that was the first attraction to us becoming friends. In the Spanish culture, when you're close to someone, you call them primo or prima, which means cousin. So that's how close you feel. So a lot of the players call me cousin. Lots of hugs and kisses, and they trust me. They can come to me with whatever they need, and they know that I'll take care of it. And that's a big deal.
Having that at Steve and Alex's house out in Los Angeles, having that personal connection, having it be across a meal rather than across a board table, I think was a great start to the process and certainly helped us truly understand who Juan is. I think for all of us, he wanted to know the direction of our organization. He wanted to know not only this year, but for the next 10, 15 years, what were we going to do to be an industry-leading franchise? What were we going to do to separate ourselves and ultimately win? He wants to win. Throughout his young career, he's been on a number of very good teams. He's already been to 2 World Series. He's won 1. And he wanted to make sure that when he was picking a destination, we were going to continue to do everything we could to win. We tried to lay out our vision, talk a little bit about our backgrounds, the success that various people around that table have had in various businesses, various organizations, various parts of their lives, and why we thought our philosophies could lead to future success with the Mets.
We were pretty honest with him, you know, and we talk about how we do things here with the Mets. And not only we are a first-class organization, we care about people, we're committed to winning.
I came away and my first impression was how passionate Juan is about hitting. He lights up when he talks about hitting, and how much he cares about his craft, how much he cares about winning, how much he cares about baseball. That's what came across to me in that setting, was this is a person who takes his sport incredibly seriously and has tremendous motivation to do it at a very high level.
While we were in LA, as Juan was leaving, my father said, "So, are you coming or not?" And I said, "Grandpa, this is just to meet him, and he makes that decision soon." He goes, "Oh, he already knows if he's coming or not. He'll tell me." I was like, "He's not going to tell you, but good try."
Mets presentation categorized by John Heyman as a big production, very detailed. We'd expect nothing less.
The anticipation behind this decision is as big as it was when LeBron decided to leave Cleveland to go to South Beach, man.
3 days later, a new challenger entered the chase and reintroduced themselves.
This was the Yankees' first chance to really sit down and for Juan to see where the organization is headed and where he might spend the next, 13 to 15 years.
After that, he was kind of quiet from my end. Obviously, we're talking to some other people, but when it came down to Soto, I didn't have much information.
You mentioned how the Yankees, the Red Sox, Blue Jays, they've already met with Soto. The Dodgers have a meeting that's pending.
I would not count the Dodgers out until this thing is signed, sealed, delivered somewhere else.
Is he willing to leave some money on the table or defer heavily?
Will not rule out the LA Dodgers.
After the first meeting, every involved team submit a bid, and then got some feedback and submitted a follow-up bid. And it became clear that we were one of the few clubs still left in the process, and that our offers were being taken very seriously and were very competitive.
What are you hearing about where things stand with Soto's free agency right now?
What do you know about Juan Soto? Give us the latest.
We're still about a couple weeks away here from the winter meetings.
At the same time, it was a very opaque process where there was a lot of rounds of bidding, where you kind of didn't know who you were bidding against, how much they were bidding, and so it was a little bit of bidding with blinders on.
When chasing a historical courtship, a full court press is imperative.
I ended up, reaching out to Juan and sent him a text and just kind of said, "Hey, you know you've got your suitors and everything, but like, we're trying to win here year in and year out. Like, we're not just trying to do this one and done thing. Like, Steve is a guy that he wants to be in there every single year. And so if you want to be a part of something that we're going to be competing every single year and we're going to be laying it all out on the line, like, we would love to have you.
The best pure hitter, I believe, in this generation right now.
He's a gate attraction. He's already proven he can handle the pressure of playing in a big market.
He is 26 years old.
He knows there's no better place than New York, but if we're that team that brings that World Series back to this fan base since '86, like, you'll never be forgotten. And he appreciated that and said, you know, we're looking at all options right now, but, you know, I appreciate you reaching out.
With plenty of suitors still in the hunt, word comes out that Juan is nearing his decision.
A source said he could decide before the winter meetings, which start on Sunday after finishing third in the MVP as a Yankee.
We're getting close. I think, you know, as we said, it could be any day. It could be by the end of this week. We are truly in the stretch run.
We could see a contract potentially in excess of $700 million.
At this stage in the process where he was deciding between 2, maybe 3 organizations at the end, that meeting with him again, understanding his concerns, understanding what he really wanted, and also expressing why we really believed this was the right fit was important for us.
Well, the first one wasn't bad. I mean, actually, it was more of a get to know you. I think Juan was a little more reserved in the first meeting. Certainly didn't know me, didn't know my family, didn't know the Mets. And so I felt like I wanted to get to know Juan a little bit more, so I requested a second meeting.
With the finish line seemingly in sight, the Mets wanted to make sure their intentions were known.
So we met at Steve's house in Florida.
When they got there, I joked that I was running out of houses to have these meetings. I had a few more left, but you know, we can't, you know, at some point we're going to run out of homes.
At that point, we were able to really understand what Juan was seeking, talk about how we wanted to proceed as an organization, what was really important to us as an organization, why Juan fit in so well into that vision.
That was also a meeting where they were pressing me hard on certain things that they were concerned about with the Mets. Number one, he was very focused on protection, you know, in the lineup.
At that point, I'm not sure Juan knew where he was going to go or how he was thinking about the various teams still involved. He had great organizations pursuing him. He had arguably the best organizations in baseball in some of the best cities in our country pursuing him.
I mean, this is a shotgun marriage, right? I mean, he's under pressure too because he's got to make a decision.
The most anticipated week of the Major League Baseball offseason gets underway on Monday. A ton of anticipation around both Mets and Yankees fans.
I just thought that if he was going to stay in New York, don't know what the other bids were, if he was thinking about going elsewhere, that he would choose the Yankees.
Juan Soto reportedly wants to have a strong relationship from ownership down.
Generally, these meetings have been about ownership.
It starts with Steve Cohen being that X factor, being a more personal owner.
Didn't get any indication that, you know, that we were the preferred spot. The best I could get out of them, that I checked the owner's box, you know, whatever that means. And better than nothing, but certainly I felt not enough to make him go cross town.
Steve and I were in communication regularly and trying to set a strategy and move the discussions forward in the best way we possibly could.
And that was Friday before, you know, 2 days before the final decision came down. And so I walked out of there thinking, wow, they have some real concerns, and I don't know if they're going to come our way based on those concerns.
It could come down to the Mets and the Yankees.
It seems like such a wild dream that we've come to this, that the New York Mets could actually take a player of that magnitude from the Yankees.
It will be a shift when it comes to New York sports.
I don't think Hal can afford to lose him 6 miles away.
I think it's going to eventually come down to the Yankees and or the Mets.
This is the move that changes the perception of everything.
Perception is key, especially in New York sports.
He was still at that point processing all the information, digesting, talking with his family, talking with his loved ones, and trying to really think through which path did he want to pursue. And so if he didn't know, it was going to be really tough for us to for us to know where this was headed.
I turned to him, I go, what was your assessment of the meeting? He goes, well, 15%, maybe 20% chance of him coming to us.
I remember talking to David on a Friday, and he was pretty honest with me. It's like, I don't think we're getting the player.
Frankly, I was annoyed at the meeting only because they were telling me all the things that we couldn't make him happy on. Then the irony is, I got a call from Scott the next day telling me what a great meeting it was. I was like, really? I go, that was one of the worst meetings I've ever been in, okay? And now it was a great meeting. I go, really? And so I still was highly skeptical that it was going our way. I still felt ultimately he would stay at the Yankees.
It was a chaotic day. It was a Sunday.
John, paint the picture. Give us your thesis on Juan Soto. Where does it stand right now?
Well, we're still waiting. We still have the 5 teams. Going talking to people. The Yankees seem a little more confident than some of the other teams. Boston a little bit less confident than some of the other teams. Mets kind of in the middle right now.
We hadn't heard from Soto's camp or Scott Boras in probably about 24 hours at that point.
If we're going to give a favorite, we're probably going to look at New York, one or the other. The Blue Jays are motivated. The Red Sox on the come. They have a terrific farm system, a great manager. Fenway would be a great place for him to hit. So there are positives with every team.
We got a call probably around 3:30 or 4 p.m. in the afternoon. I was actually on my way to LaGuardia because we had to get to the winter meeting.
I think just from the lobby talk, I think people will be a little bit surprised if he's not a New York player at the end of this.
I got a call from Scott late in the afternoon saying that you're definitely in the game. And I was like, well, I'm not sure what that means. I was still concerned that I might be being used as a stalking horse, and ultimately the decision would be no, I'm going to Yankees or some other place.
We had 5 meetings with 5 very motivated big market teams. He has a lot to go over, a lot to consider.
How likely is it that the announcement comes either tonight or tomorrow?
I think at this point, we're certainly within 48 hours.
I figured, all right, well, either way it's going to end today. Right, it was pretty clear he was going to make a decision. I went and had dinner with a friend of mine down in Fort Lauderdale. I got a call from Scott saying that he was at a certain level and I was at a certain level. And I walked back to the table saying, we're not going to get him. We're too far apart. It's going to go to the, and that the Yankees were pretty competitive, or at least other bidders were pretty competitive.
With the pursuit reaching historic levels and the potential shift in the landscape, it was time for the final push.
Could he pay $750? Could he go higher than that? Just imagine the victory lap in New York City and beyond. If he could say that he got Juan Soto.
This is the test on if he's just a big market owner or if he's the big market owner.
There were multiple bidders out there, and it felt like they were all competitive. And so hard to know where they were, but it felt like I didn't have a particular advantage. At that point, I was in the low 700s with a bid, and I raised my bid up to 750. Didn't know if that mattered or not, but got no indication that I was going to get it done.
We got a call that Juan wanted to try to get to a deal with us. We began to exchange various concepts, and we saw a pretty significant gap at that point.
There was the thing about a signing bonus, and Scott gave me the indication that that wasn't going to matter. So I said, lower the signing bonus and raise the bid.
We actually had a mechanical issue on the plane, so I got off the plane.
We do appreciate your patience, though. We're going to have everybody deplane the aircraft.
I get a call from Scott saying, we're at this number. I said, we're really close.
And Scott and Steve had worked out the final big picture items in the deal. Called Scott, and we worked through some of the more granular elements. And we're actually working on that when I was 35,000 feet in the air, texting back and forth, trying to get to Dallas for the winter meeting. Once we got, I'd say, to the 1 yard line, I had to notify a number of members on my team because you have to work through contract language and you have to work through MLB approvals. And obviously I notified Carlos Mendoza.
I'm getting ready to fly to the winter meetings. I get a text from David, hey, there's a lot of action on Soto today. I was like, all right, but I didn't have any details. I didn't know what was going on.
Soto a favorite right now. I know everyone's saying Mets.
Say that he stays with the Yankees.
Boston Red Sox, the Toronto Blue Jays.
The Red Sox are in.
I think Juan Soto ends up being a New York Yankee.
And the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Dodgers swooping in.
If the Dodgers are still in this, the Blue Jays are in. There's no question about that.
We are finally in the end game.
Scott called me back and said, "You got the player."
Juan Soto to the Mets. It's real.
We got him! We got him!
Put this into perspective for this franchise, the Mets, to go out and land a generational talent.
What ultimately led the Mets to get to a place that others would not get?
And I was like, what? Holy.
That was my reaction.
I was like, wow.
And so I can only imagine the reaction of the people who weren't like in the middle of it.
We have a logo swap alert on SportsCenter. New York stays the same, but that logo is changing from the Yankees to the Mets. The Soto deal is done.
I didn't know until right to the end. A half hour before, thinking I have no shot. This is not going my way.
And then there's sort of the more granular, somewhat esoteric elements of the deal that took us pretty much all night to hammer out. And then we finally got an actual letter of agreement done the next day.
Once I met his family, I understood why that was so important to him. So they're very close-knit, and I could see that that was going to be the edge we had.
It was a stare down, the Mets swooped in, and they stole the Yankees superstar. That's it.
We welcome you. Special coverage here on SNY. The Mets are going to introduce Juan Soto out at Citi Field.
Juan, first of all, congratulations. Why did you choose the Mets?
What you were seeing from the other side was unbelievable. The vibes and everything in the field and the future that this team has. All the ability to keep winning, to keep growing a team, to try to grow a dynasty. It has a lot to do with my decision.
I'm not sure any baseball person would feel comfortable bidding what I bid. You know, even the other teams were probably feeling the same way I was feeling, that we were in uncharted territory.
Owning the Mets has been quite an experience. I think all of these deals are a rush, and I hope he loves our family as much as we love our family.
Sometimes you have to reach a little bit, and it's going to feel really uncomfortable. And you're going to really question, are you doing the right thing? But ultimately, when it's really special, I find more often than not it's the right decision.
The news came out that we signed him. I gave him a call and I just said, hey, I know you're getting inundated, but like, so glad to be your teammate now. I don't have to play against you anymore. It was really good interaction and couldn't be more thrilled to have him as a teammate.
It's incredibly exciting. What I want is what every Mets fan wants, and that's to have a world-class organization, win as much as possible on the field, and win a world championship. And bringing in a player of the caliber of Juan Soto helps us get there and solidifies our stature as an organization that's attempting to be at the top of our sport for a long time.
You know, the commitment from our owners, David's track record, and what we were able to do this past year. So there's a lot to like.
If the Mets weren't a point of destination, Flushing, he wouldn't have come here. He wants to win. Money is certainly a huge issue, but there is a freshness. There's something new brewing here. You can feel it if you're an announcer, a fan, a teammate, and I'm sure he felt that.
When you look at, that attitude that we will do whatever it takes to win, I mean, this should be at the top of everybody's list.
I'm just glad that he's a Met now.
We got him.
15-year contracts, money. What are you looking forward to just for your own baseball career?
I'm looking for a lot of champagne showers.